Hello. If you're like me and my clients, you probably feel like you've tried everything. And while we have tried everything under the sun, most of the plans and food approaches that we've tried assume that food is more powerful than we are. Spoiler alert, we are already powerful. However, our story has taken some of our power away, specifically in areas of our life where we aren't 100% confident in. However, we can reclaim all our power. In today's video, I'm going to share with you some healthy rebels who bravely chose to diagnose and look at their story and then courageously chose to own it, to liberate themselves for their own truce with food. So, Christie, how did it feel to identify your story and recognize that that was the reason that your eating fell off track versus focusing on more willpower or discipline?
There was a huge sense of relief. Although the process was not a walk in the park, just turning that corner was very freeing and liberating.
Yeah, I've been interviewing a couple other people and they were like freeing and not a walk in the, and like bittersweet because you see everything and you're like, ah.
Exactly, yeah. It sounds like, oh, it's so easy and nice, but it was hard to get there. But once it happened, I was like, oh, this feels good.
Yeah. I'm so glad you shared that because I want people to know that there's a lot of talk about owning our stories, and it's not as easy as putting up a meme on Instagram, right? So what has changed in terms of food and your health as a result of working on owning your story rather than doing another food plan or adding more food rules to your life?
Um, I have a lot more time and energy to focus on what I truly value, which is surprising. My personal relationships, my career, what I want out of life. I feel less distracted focusing on food because I now trust myself a bit more around the food. And because of that trust, there's a lot less worry and doubt and regret about like certain situations I'll be in and how I'm going to eat or if I'm going to overeat and all those worries that are entangled in that process of thinking about the food. So because of that, my food and health decisions are more in line with my goals and taking care of myself in general. And that becomes a little bit more natural rather than following someone else's directions or diet and obsessing over these rules. And then when I break these rules, I'm then like in trouble or I'm putting like myself on blast for doing these things that are wrong. But without putting energy into these certain rules, I can just freely focus on things that make me happy. And a lot of new questions and new thoughts and ideas have come out because of that space.
Oh, I love that because I love possibilities and it's so fun to think of things other than food possibilities or weight loss possibilities.
Yes, exactly. I didn't know a lot of other I didn't know about these other passions that existed. It kind of sounds like corny, but it's true.
No, I mean, I've shared on Insatiable how like I realized my hobby was weight loss. Like I didn't know that I didn't have hobbies because
Mhm.
it felt that was all that I did. So I totally get that.
And it
So,
can be, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
It's scary too, like having so much more free time. It feels like I kind of felt lonely at first. It's like, what do I want to do? So it's exciting, but also a little nerve wracking at the same time.
Yeah, I'm so glad you share that because this kind of change is so disorienting because this thing that we've had hanging over our heads for often decades is now gone. And it's like, who am I without that? And so what has changed in your life as a result of not having food be front and center anymore?
Um, well, I'm kind of going through a career shift. I mean, I'm still doing the same thing more or less, but in terms of what I want to focus on as a designer and what I want to say or who I want to support or what companies I want to work for, I I think I just keep questioning like what is my purpose? What do I want to do? And it's making things more difficult and more emotional because I don't have food to numb out my emotions and that's a good thing. Like, you've used the analogy of like it's a pot of boiling water, and like if you want to blow that water out, I've used food in the past to like cool it down, but my emotions are all just boiling over now, and I'm trying to sort through them and trying to figure out, yeah, what do I want to do? And I'm in a crossroads of working at a new company and wanting to freelance and then wanting to explore more things. So my career is like trying to rebalance, and like I'm a little off, and I'm trying to get grounded again. And when I finally get grounded and land on my feet, I want it to be on like stable, really exciting ground. If that makes sense. I'm not there yet. I'm still in this messy journey. But so that's changed. That the process of like really wanting to have like a fulfilling life is changed in what I think is fulfilling versus what other people think is fulfilling that I think I want to be a part of. But I'm trying to separate myself from other people and project, like having other people maybe project what they think that I might want to do, or me thinking about what other people think I should do. It's this whole like real versus perceived situation. But that is one thing I'm working on. And also my relationships with my significant other and my friends and my family. I really just want more deeper connections with them. And it's not like I have to have these serious, intense conversations with them all the time, but just being present and just having good time with my friends and family. I want a lot more of, rather than just trying to get through life doing something that I think other people want me to do. So there's definitely that rebalancing of just finding fulfilling moments with my people and my work.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because you're about 6 months out, and not even a full 6 months out. And so I always say about 80% of people, once they go through Truce with Food, have a career shift, because what you were saying about when you own your story, you start to realize you're making a lot of choices that you didn't know you were making. And as you go through this identity shift of it's more self-authoring and taking ownership, not just of your story, you start to have realize you have different preferences and different values. And so if we check back in a year from now, you will definitely have found the next step for the career. And I think it's really important, though, to realize that's such an important milestone, though, because you're not focusing on food and weight loss. It's like, okay, now I want to focus on this career thing because I'm developing more self-trust, and I know I can have that fulfillment. And I'm willing to go through finding what you're passionate and fulfilling is not a quick fix, right? Just like weight loss. It's not like an overnight, like, oh, that happens. It takes work to figure it out. Yeah.
Uncomfortable situations.
I know. So I would say that you are better at handling discomfort and being outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I crave that for some reason, but I really don't enjoy being in there. But for some reason, it feels comfortable to be uncomfortable. I don't know. It's
Well, that's health, right? It's like in Chinese medicine, they call it qi, but it should always be flowing, right? And that's part of what creative process is. And so I just admire that that to me is health. Like, am I alive? And you're feeling all of it. And so that's So if a friend were to come to you now, having gone through Truce with Food, and said, I'm feeling out of control with food, what would you tell them now, having gone through owning your story?
Without trying to get preachy, I would share that I've had similar feelings for 13 years after experimenting with certain foods or ways of eating, diets or exercises, etc. I've learned that it's not about the food. It's the binging and restricting. It was just a coping mechanism to numb out other aspects of my life that I may have been too uncomfortable to deal with, or maybe it was too deeply buried inside of me to even see. And a lot of that takes reflecting and journaling, empathy and patience, and the right questions, the right tools, and a lot of uncomfortable moments to find the reasons why I've eaten, or why we eat in general, outside of being hungry. And Truce with Food taught me how to see, feel, and embrace all those uncomfortable moments to understand myself. So food itself is only surface level, and our relationship with it is a symptom of something that's deeper that's going on. So
I love
yeah.
that. I love that. And the compassion and empathy, right? Because
Yeah.
in the diet world, it's like, hate yourself. You should be trying harder. It's like,
good or bad.
yeah, exactly. So what would you explain what I meant when I told you that you can't fail at Truce with Food and owning your story?
Um,
How
in
would
the
you?
in the beginning of my healing journey, I actually struggled to understand this, but I do. But I can be a perfectionist at times, a lot of times, which I did not realize, because I'm a very loose, kind of messy person. I didn't realize I was kind of a perfectionist, but um, so the idea of doing something wrong, or quote unquote wrong, or quote unquote being bad around food, or slipping up felt like failure. But as I started to understand like my emotional health and experience and history, I actually became more patient with myself. And when I was more patient, I wasn't so harsh or on any misaligned actions or binging or anything like that. So these like moments of misaligned actions were like a form of data. So I would think like, okay, this went in a way I didn't want it to. I binged or I self-soothed with a crappy moment or a crappy day with a like jar of nut butter, but it's okay. It happens. It happens. Just like let it happen, wash over you. But really I have to question why. Like that why is where that information is. So like these non-perfect moments actually translate into new information about what's going on. And so the failures are not failures if you keep trying, because they have a lot of information in them. They're like nuggets of information that we just have to tap into, which is really uncomfortable. But if we do it, then we can learn from them. And then all those quote unquote failures that aren't failures, they're like nuggets of information, are really valuable. So
Yeah, I love that. Nuggets of information. It's like crack the code, right?
or like coal that's actually gold on the inside. You just gotta like really work it.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you first signed up for Truce with Food, were you worried about not finishing? Being now that since you discovered you were a perfectionist, or, or that you would get lost, or
Yes, I did think I'd get lost. I remember actually having a one-on-one call with you before the program started, because I wanted to learn more about it, and I was worried about the group situation because I am an introvert and I'm pretty quiet, especially in new situations or in a group or even around in my own group of friends. I'm the quieter one, but I do a lot better with one-on-one. So I was nervous that I would kind of get lost in the shuffle, or I'd let other people do a lot of talking and I just wouldn't engage as much and get that much from it, as much as I could from it. And being that perfectionist and wanting to get as much as I could from it, I was just worried like this isn't right for me. But that was not necessarily the case, because I actually ended up speaking up a lot. um, and yeah, I also worried that I wouldn't finish it. Like a part of me was worried, but a part of me was also just so fed up with my current state. So like I have a history of like, and I'm sure most of us do, not being able to stick with a certain food plan or a certain diet I didn't see benefits from it. Like I'd start it for a few weeks, but I never would be with it long enough to see benefits. So I just kind of had a feeling that that might happen again. But yeah, I was so fed up with fighting food that I was willing to see this one through.
Good, good. And how beneficial do you think it was, given that you said you tend to do better one-on-one, but how beneficial do you think it was to be in such a small, intimate group with other people who are working on, who want to learn, who want to unpack the golden nuggets or the nuggets of information?
It was really nice. Surprised, like kind of surprised, yeah. Because being with other people allowed me to see kind of how they were processing the information in their tests and things that they were challenged with or struggling with. It made me feel less alone if I was like hitting a wall or I couldn't get something down. And hearing them talk about it first maybe like made me feel more comfortable to open up and then kind of tap into my own situation a bit deeper, or seeing it from another perspective. It was really nice. But yeah, because of hearing their struggles as well, and especially with struggles, not just in life in general, but in learning the new content and information in Truce with Food, it made me feel less alone. So I was a bit more gentle with myself. And I think that gave me more endurance to keep going rather than like try really, really hard. Everyone is perfect and you're not. Like I was just a lot more like forgiving. And because of that, I think I was able to keep going, and it didn't, maybe if I didn't have that, or if I was doing it alone, it would have slowed down or halted my healing process. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, we say like no one likes being a beginner. And
Yeah.
the stuff that we learn is so new to everyone that everyone's like, WTF, you know?
It's nice too when one person finally says it, everyone's like, oh yeah, same. It just wants, you need one person to say that it's hard. Like, everyone else is struggling too. So it's nice to have that wall break down.
Yeah, and it's also wonderful to see by the end, everyone's like, oh, I know what this is, right? You know, like in the beginning, there's kind of this franticness of like, but I'm not grasping this and this. And by the end, people are like, all right, I'm going to sit on that and I know it'll come to me. You know, I just love the trajectory of self-trust that comes once you just are in it, and it always comes together. So, and lastly, so what do you know to be true now about food, your body, and health?
Well, food is delicious still, but it doesn't, yeah, but it doesn't rule my days, my thoughts, my life. Um, and I don't know, I'm not like obsessing over it. I appreciate it for what it does, and I enjoy eating really good food, but I don't like think about it all day long or try to counterbalance what I ate here with my next meal. Just it's not like I'm just eating everything or anything. I'm more very conscious of like, or more in tune with, I guess, what my body is craving, and it's typically craving something good for me. I just have to listen. But yeah, in terms of like my body, I feel like it's my body and there's nothing wrong with it. And I'm actually very impressed with what it's capable of doing. And I don't know, I can make positive choices for my mental and emotional and physical health every day, and like little small actions, and I don't need to be embarrassed for feeling a certain way, and I have the right to feel a certain way, and I have confidence now to explore these feelings. Like maybe I need to have more context around something that happened to understand this feeling or that person's feeling, and all of which is really empowering for myself to get through things and makes me more empathetic person to other people as well. And in general, I just feel more control of what's real versus what is perceived. So I'm less likely to assume that what other people think of me, or like assuming what other people might think of me, like rule my food choices or my body image or my health status. So all good.
I love that. Well, that is such a reflection of your answer, I think, in the first or second question about what is other people's ideas, what are my choices, what do I want? And when you're discerning all of that, it creates this self-trust, and that's what it translates every day into, which is so liberating, to feel like that, and that can actually bring you closer to people, right? Rather than being afraid of people being mad or what will they think. It's like, oh, that actually brings the right people, closer.
Yeah, my story was all rooted in self-doubt, and I didn't realize that. And my self-doubt was like, am I good enough? Or was I too loud? Was I too this? Or did I say the wrong thing? Yeah, so it was a lot of self-doubt. And once I realized that, and then I would eat. And so once I realized that, and how much this not being able to discern what's real versus perceived, like that, once I was able to do that, it opened a lot of doors in terms of like mental freedom, or just kind of going down different avenues of new relationships or new ways of thinking. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
really
No.
exciting and scary at the same time.
Well, right, because when you realize that you have all these choices, that requires, you realize you're responsible for your life, right? You can't just say this is how things are, or this is this person saying this, or it's like, actually, I have responsibility, I have choices and agency, and I can be responsible if I want. It's hard taking radical responsibility for your life.
Yeah.
Sometimes I still want, it takes me a while to like own certain, well, you could change that, you know. But I look forward to seeing how you'll continue to go up the spiral staircase of freedom and creativity. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Of course. I enjoyed talking with you, Allie. Thanks for listening.
Of course. I always love chatting with you too. When you understand the root cause of what causes you to battle food, and you have someone support you to rewrite your story, so much food and life freedom and possibility are waiting for you. As you can see from my clients' stories, yes, you stop fighting food, and that is hugely relieving. And you also get back time, energy, and self-trust that would allow you to live a life aligned with your radical truth. Maybe that's a better job making more money, or it's parenting in your own style, or it's having deeper, more fulfilling relationships, or it's getting your period back so you can have children and having your skin clear up. I wonder, what would you choose to write into your story if you knew that you could?